I'm Tara. Welcome back to my channel. If you're tempted to skip shavasana at the end of your yoga practice, then watch this video. If you don't skip shavasana, but you want to learn more about the deeper meaning of this pose, then also watch this video because we'll get to that too. But if you're someone who's not a fan of shavasana, what I often hear people say is it's an easy pose, it's a waste of time, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Shavasana not only may be one of the most challenging yoga poses, but it also offers us a lot of benefits and it's a very significant pose. When I first started practicing yoga, before I was a teacher, before I was able to meditate, I actually hated shavasana. If I was in a class in a studio, I was just waiting for it to be over, and if I was home, I would just skip it. Now when I practice, shavasana never seems long enough to me, so I hope in this video to help you to start to love this pose as well. So first off, let's talk about what shavasana is. So when we translate the word shavasana into English, so it's a Sanskrit word, so in English it actually translates to corpse pose. Now, please don't let this name scare you away. This is really a beautiful and powerful posture that we can learn so much from. If you think of shavasana as just lying there, well, I guess this is true to a point, but this extremely oversimplifies this pose. Also, if you find yourself hating shavasana, it's likely that you genuinely really need this pose in your life. Looking back, I now know that the reason I personally didn't like practicing shavasana was because I hated those moments of quiet, because for me, they weren't quiet. They were filled with so many thoughts. I hated lying there feeling like I was doing nothing, but it felt like that at that point in my life because I didn't realize the importance of moments of stillness and silence. So I've come a long way from that girl, and now, like I said, shavasana is my favorite part of yoga classes, and it usually doesn't feel long enough. So you could come to love this pose too. Also, just a quick side note, because you probably see shavasana spelled like this in the title of this video, but the pronunciation of this word is more like shavasana. This spelling right here is just closer to the original spelling of the pose in Sanskrit. It's still not exactly the way it would look in Sanskrit, but it is closer. But the pose is pronounced shavasana. I honestly think that shavasana might be the most challenging yoga pose out there. It's often more challenging than the physically challenging postures since it lacks the distraction of movement. Quieting the mind is often easier during movement-based yoga flows because then you have like a specific focal point for your awareness. When you're in shavasana, there's no distraction, so you become very aware of what your mind's doing, and it can definitely be challenging to quiet your thoughts. When you're in shavasana, you're working to let go and find moments of quiet in the mind and in the body, but that's not an easy task and it takes practice. So meet this challenge and practice shavasana at the end of your yoga classes. Don't let your ego or your fear of these still moments hold you back from this challenge. Accept that it might be difficult to quiet your mind at first or that you might feel restless. That's okay. Just like it takes practice to be able to do an arm balance, it also takes practice to be able to do shavasana. And remember, even if you do have a bunch of thoughts that come up while you're practicing shavasana, that doesn't mean that you can't do the pose. If you hold an arm balance for even just a few seconds, doesn't that still count, right? You had success, you did the arm balance. Maybe next time you come to the arm balance, you'll be able to hold it longer. The same thing goes for shavasana. Maybe next time you'll be able to find longer moments of quiet. The important part is that you're showing up for the pose and you're working towards improvement. The other challenging part of shavasana is being able to relax the muscles of your body. So while it probably sounds like relaxing a muscle should be easier than strengthening it, that's not always the case. In shavasana, you're really working to relax your entire body, and this can be really challenging. Many of us hold tension in certain parts of our body unconsciously, so working on releasing this tension is not always easy. Being able to let go, relax your body, and quiet the mind, these are the challenges we're facing in shavasana. So this pose is not easy. It's challenging, but isn't a challenging pose usually an exciting one? I know you're probably like, Tara, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna think of Shavasana as exciting, but think about how great you feel the first time you hold an arm balance or the first time you did some challenging physical posture. It feels really great the first time you do it, and it also feels really great the first time you truly find rest and stillness in Shavasana. If you're still not convinced on Shavasana, you're not sold on it, let's look at some of the benefits. So, from a physical standpoint, practicing Shavasana is an amazing way to let our muscles rest after a physical practice. Taking time for rest is just as important as taking time to exercise. So in Shavasana, we're working right to let go of any of that muscle tension that we may be holding onto in the body. Shavasana can also help calm our nervous system. So many of us live in this constant state of stress, which greatly impacts the nervous system, and Shavasana can help to bring you back into a state of balance. Shavasana is also just wonderful for facilitating that sense of calm and peace within. And although I know it may be difficult to quiet your mind at first, with practice, this really does get easier. Finding those moments of stillness and silence in your mind are so magical. These are the moments where you really can feel into your soul, your spirit connection. Also, when Shavasana is done after your physical-based yoga practice like vinyasa or power yoga, it allows you the time and the space to integrate that physical practice into your soul and spirit. So this is where you pause and you really feel the effects of your practice on your entire being beyond the physical body. Shavasana is such a wonderful place to feel into the subtle energy shifts that may have occurred during your physical practice. Also, Shavasana has been around for a really long time. So many of the yoga poses that we often practice, like in a vinyasa flow, are pretty relatively modern. They didn't exist in ancient yoga traditions. So like a pose like half moon or flying lizard pose, those weren't part of ancient yoga practices. And I'm not saying these poses aren't good. They do offer their own set of benefits, but there is great power in a practice that has really stood the test of time. Shavasana is one of those ancient yoga poses. It's found in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is a super old yogi text. The fact that we still practice Shavasana so widely throughout yoga practices today shows that this is one of those practices that has stood the test of time, and I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so for those of you interested in the deeper meaning of Shavasana, let's talk about it a little bit. So Shavasana is a pose where you're practicing conscious rest. So it guides us to a state of peace and stillness while we're still within our wakeful consciousness. It really invites us to surrender to the unknown and to invite in peace and love. And although the translation of corpse pose may seem daunting, in yogic tradition, death is really not viewed as such a depressing thing. Serious yogis usually maintain a pretty keen awareness of mortality, and they're pretty comfortable acknowledging that one day we will shed this human body, which is basically like an outfit that our soul is wearing during our current earthly existence. By honoring and recognizing our mortality and by understanding that death is an integral part of life, we open ourselves up to living more fully within our current human experience. Embracing the cycle of life and death through Shavasana helps us to release fear and enables us to live consciously and with intention. It creates space for a genuine connection with our spiritual self, and it guides us to acknowledge that our body and our mind are tools for our soul's interaction in this world, but the soul is really our true essence. So there are so many facets to this pose, and you could choose to embrace what resonates with you. Maybe you want to start to tap into the deeper meaning of Shavasana, or maybe you're not ready for that and you just want to practice it to work on relaxing the muscles of your body. Wherever you're at on your yoga journey is perfect. Embrace it. I hope you do come to love the pose Shavasana as much as I do, and that you start to see how important Shavasana is to our journey as yogis. If you made it to the end of this video, you probably will like my Patreon. There we dive deeper into yoga and spirituality, and you get practices to go along with it. So if you're interested, I will link that in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for deepening your understanding of yoga and for diving into these spiritual topics. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, say hi, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. Namaste.